Key to a franchise is it has to be replicatable and duplicatable.
Replicatable and duplicatable.
That's the key.
Okay, so the con, I guess the opposite of that would be buying a business model that has been proved to typically work. Buying a franchise model that works typically costs more money up front. Terry, you've worked with business owners, and how often are people concerned when they decide to become a franchise business owner about that upfront cost, or do they get that sticker shock of saying, what am I buying here? I mean, how often do you see that as a big concern?
It's fairly common, and people are evaluating what they're going to do as far as an investment. So the key is to help them understand it from an investment and return on investment standpoint. Once you think of it as a cost, it seems like it's a black hole that it goes into and there's not any upside from that. The reality is they cost more to launch, but they have a much faster return on investment and a more consistent and predictable return on investment. So in the long term, it actually costs you a lot less from time, energy, and effort of doing it on your own.
And I want to give a couple examples to the thrivers watching this that might be helpful. There's one gentleman I know who it was in the oil and gas business. And he recently invested in a franchise, and within 24 months, he was up and totally profitable and doing great. And he said it was great because all I had to do was work the system, and it worked. Whereas I know a lot of small business owners that have been in business for 20 years and still don't have all their systems built. So I think you're 100% right there. Now, I guess the pro number 2 here is you can receive a complete system to operate the business successfully, so you don't have to waste your time and money guessing about what you need to do to become successful. Kind of like what you said, you don't have to waste your time.
Yeah, not only waste your time, but need to bring in all the ideas and creativity and systems and fine-tune and tweak those so that they are model ready. That happens over time in a non-franchise business, and obviously that's a slower track and can be more costly.
In the going back to that sports clips example, I was just thinking about all the graphic design costs of designing the signage and designing the print piece, and I was thinking, man, if I bought a franchise like this, I wouldn't have to do all that. Because I know as a small business owner for years, every time I wanted to make a print piece, I've got to pay a designer $400 or $500, or think about, are we large enough to bring in a full-time person yet? And there's a lot of that. Now, the con is that you really have to stick with the system you bought. I don't have an issue with that, but I know a lot of franchise owners do. I mean,
well, that would be the key, is to stick with that, because your example of the surroundings that you experienced in the sport clip.
Yeah.
Just think if you were an independent business owner and you had to go out and acquire all those tradespeople to create that for you as one individual, as compared to Great Clips doing it for hundreds and bringing that cost down. So there's a lot of cost savings associated with it. But then you have to meet the commitment of following the system. And the simplest way to think of it is that you're on a super highway to success with a franchise, and it's a multi-lane highway, 6-8 lanes wide, but there's guardrails.
Okay.
And as long as you stay within those guardrails, success is very predictable. Once you get outside those guardrails, things happen very quickly. We call it, the system acronym is save yourself significant time, energy, and money. And one thing changes dramatically when you go outside the guardrails, and only one thing, and that save changed to cost yourself significant time, energy, and money.
I want to ask you for your commentary on this story about not following the guardrails. Kind of a story time moment here.
Okay.
I recently met a franchise owner who was explaining to me they wanted to hire me as a consultant because they wanted to build their own website because the corporate wasn't building a good enough of a website in their mind. Well, I told them, I can't do that because of the legal ramifications, and 2, you bought a system, you should follow it. But this person was hell-bent on making their own website because they thought that the corporate site wasn't good enough, quote unquote. What they were designing that they showed me was a disaster, and all their business cards were just nasty. Do you see that a lot, where people actually buy a franchise and then make their own hideous business cards? Do you see these kind of things?
Well, actually, we have a terminology for it that we when we're training our new franchisees, one of the first things we talk about in day one is that for the next 6 months, you need to spare us your brilliance. But franchisees come with brilliance that they believe right away is much better than what the franchisor has done or will do. Not all, but you run into that occasionally.
So for the first 6 months, you need to spare us your brilliance.
Right.
So if you're watching this and you've thought about buying a franchise, you might have a ton of good ideas, but you're saying, don't necessarily tell the world about your new ideas yet. Go ahead and implement the ideas you just bought for the first 6 months?
Yeah, because you want to get the benefits of what you've invested in. And that franchise during that first 6 months is putting the most emphasis on getting you ramped up, getting into the systems, and getting a return from that. If you start deviating from that and bringing your brilliance from your past winning formula into the new winning formula, it tends to take you off track from the results.